T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Big Blue. We got a little bit of some court documents that have dropped. Something, I kind of looked over them a little bit. Didn't seem like there was a lot there. One of it was about the court allowing cameras in the courtroom. Blue, what is your stance on cameras in the courtroom in this case? Do you think that's going to help or not help defense or prosecution, or is it irrelevant?
I think it's irrelevant. I think that they should be there for the people. Maybe the families that can't make it there, don't want to be there in the presence of Kohberger, but they still want to see him sentenced. They can have the opportunity to see it online.
Yeah, that, and like I said before, I think that there are, the people of the world have a right to, see this case. There's people that live in Moscow that were afraid through this time. But Bryan Kohberger was on the loose for 7 weeks, and they went through the terror and having a look behind there. But they deserve to also be aware of what's going on, in my opinion. Right. All right. So let's break up some of these documents. I haven't really looked into them too closely. I kind of breezed over it. Oh, our prayers out to everybody in Florida with the weather situation that's going down. Hope you guys are staying safe.
Yeah, be safe out there, guys. I've seen some videos come out already. You guys got a lot of rain out there.
Yeah. So the hey, what's going on? Colorado's like my favorite vacation spot. I need to go back. It's too hot out here in Texas. Anyway, so this is the notice of intent not to cross-examine defense's witnesses, district court decision, and records to explain witness contact. So I'll read through this a little bit, and then we'll discuss it. It says, let me blow this up. At the hearing of the state's motion for protective order, defendant's third motion to compel held on August 18, 2023, the court allowed the state to reserve cross-examination of two witnesses, Gabriela Vargas, who the defense disclosed without a CV the day before the trial, and Leo Larkin, whom the defense disclosed a PowerPoint presentation for the first time during her direct examination. The state has determined that it not need to cross-examine either of these witnesses. In addition, the state mentioned at the hearing that Judge Whitney in Canyon County ruled on a similar issue 1 week prior to the hearing, and that the state would provide the written ruling once available. The transcript of that hearing is now available, and the relevant portion of the transcript is attached to Exhibit A. Finally, at the hearing on August 23rd, the defendant counsel suggested in open court that the state had improperly contacted Miss Vargas. The state has attached under seal as Exhibit B the reports and other records to explain that contact. The state should ask the court to grant request protective order to permit the state to present the information it seeks to protect the court in an in-camera hearing. So the biggest part of that is, or from what I can take out of that, Big Blue, is that the state, first and foremost, don't have any intention on talking to or with the state's or the defense's witnesses when it comes to the genetic tree and how their expertise in the field, they don't feel like it's going to matter, in my opinion. They don't even want to cross-examine. I think that they feel it is a irrelevant point, the state, And I think the judge is going to find that out, or I'm pretty sure he knows. He's just listening in and listening to the defense to ensure that he does take in consideration what they're saying. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make a difference. What do you think?
Yeah, they don't want to cross-examine them, and that means there's no good information that they need from them. It's just a witness the defense has that, they're like when we talked to that lawyer the other day, they're throwing everything against the wall, see what sticks. So they're hoping that maybe something that they might be able to say sticks, but the prosecution doesn't think it's anything good. So
yeah,
and then at the end, I think they still can change their mind later, but I don't think. So I think they get the chance to cross-examine, but maybe they'll waive their right to cross-examine when they're there.
Yeah, and attached to this is it seems like a transcript from another hearing to justify why. Hold on, this is SNP profile, so it probably has to do with a lot with this same stuff. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see what they did with the Vargas. The defense stood up and said that they accused the state of improperly going to her residence and interrogating her. That was the accusation, right? And then the state said no, she recanted on a few things, and we had to go get her statement. And so I want to see what was happening in that situation. That's what see. This is Mr. Jorgensen in the court. Like, this is a transcript from a different trial, but I think it has to do with the STR and the SNP profiles. And I think in this case here, without going through it every single line, I think there was an argument there that was similar to the one that Ann Taylor is bringing up to the table, which is that, hey, if they did something improper or got the information in an illegal way, right? Let's just say that they utilized Ancestry 23 and they took relatives of Kohberger that did not give permission to have their DNA checked, right? They have to give permission for that. Yeah. And so, is it possible? Well, I think this is what this court case that they're bringing up in this situation is just basically that there was an STR profile and an SNP profile created, and in this case they let it fly and it wasn't released.
Yeah, that's what happened. I'm trying to adjust my mic without making so much noise.
I will mute yourself, my man. So let's see. It says, I want to read this part. It says that particular hair may not contain enough genetic information to get an entire STR profile. That was the case in this case. And so when the state sent their hair that was tested by Dr. Green to his labs at UC Santa Cruz, what Dr. Green's methodology is to use his proprietary and developed method to extract essential every SNP that he can from that hair. Every single, there's a lot of singles there, nucleotide polymorphism that he can extract, he extracts. Now that, again, that doesn't necessarily give him enough for an STR profile, but what it did do in this case is enable him to create an SNP. So it's not necessarily the same. This is just saying that this is referencing the SNP profile. I probably should have read it all. But
a lot of pages. How many pages is it?
It's 24. And it's not really to do with this case. It's just something the state is basically saying that there's a similar case that has this STR and SNP profile thing attached to it. And there's precedent there where it was allowed.
Yeah. They've used that type of DNA in a lot of cases, but I think they just have to try to prove that they can use it in that state also, because she's trying to get it thrown out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I wanted to just see if there was anything in here that had nothing. I mean, something else other than, yeah, I guess under seal is the right here. Exhibit B attached to the state's notice of intent not to cross-examine witnesses, district court decision, and records to explain witness contact. All right. So that was the first one, the notice to intent to not cross-examine. Motion there to temporarily seal Exhibit B. SPM profile. I think he's getting out in like 5 or 6 years. Or soon, right? Right, Big Blue?
Yeah, he not soon. He was talking the other day how he wants to work with the Mexican OT because he's the new SPM.
I don't even know who that is, dude.
Listen to him, man. He's got a good song called Johnny Chang.
It's called what?
Johnny Chang, the Asian guy that makes jewelry.
Yeah.
His name. Johnny, I think it's Johnny Chang, right? Chang? Or Dang. I can't remember. I don't buy jewelry, but it's a good song though. Paul Wall comes out on it.
Oh, interesting. So this here is just the motion to temporary seal Exhibit B from the state's notice to extent not to cross-examine witness, defense witness, district court decision, and records to explain witness contact pending hearing. Now here coming out of the state of Idaho and by through the Latah County prosecuting attorney hereby moves the court pursuant to Idaho Court Administrative Rule 32G1 and Idaho Code 74 through 124 for a temporary order sealing Exhibit B in the state's notion not to cross-examine the witness, district court decision, and the records to explain witness contact, doesn't want to interfere with the enforcement proceedings, deprive a person of right of fair trial, constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, disclose the identity of a confidential source, and or disclose investigative techniques and procedures. Yeah, this stuff we've heard before. I don't understand how an explanation as to why the state made contact with the defense's witness why is that under seal? How is that protecting the case or anything? You're muted.
All right, go ahead.
I said, why would basically what I said is the records to explain witness contact, why the state contacted the defense's witness. Why should that be under seal?
Just to keep the witnesses' names out of.
Well, this is the defense's witness that they already called up. I believe it was Vargas. She testified already, referencing her expertise. Now, according to the state, in the hearing, they indicated that the state claimed out loud that it was because something about recanting. And that she was recanting some of the information or changing some of the information. Now, regardless of what she was saying or taking away, how does that affect the case or Bryan Kohberger not having a fair trial or could expose, witness or something? I mean, just redact any personal information. Like if they if they met her at her personal house, don't put her house out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's more like to keep her privacy probably, because then they probably want to show records where they went to talk to her, maybe at her work or at her home, which I believe I remember the defense saying it was at her home. But the two FBI agents went to her home. That's what she said.
Yeah. And then the next document is just basically the court granting the seal, the temporary ordering seal. All right, motion to continue hearing date. Let's see what this one's about. It's 3 pages. Oh, this is referencing the media. Proposed interveners move the court for an order continuing the September 1st, 2023 hearing date on defendant Bryan Kohberger motion to remove cameras from the courtroom. Proposed interveners separately are moving to intervene for the limited purpose of opposing Kohberger's motion. Let's see who's all in there. There's the Associated Press, Radio, Television, Digital News Association, Sinclair Media, Boise State's Newsroom. And let's see if there's anything that stands out, though. Those are a lot of local press.
Yeah. Think there's any podcasters in there?
That's what I'm looking for. The Society of Professional Journalists, and at the very last one, CNN.
CNN. CNN's always last to the news.
I'm actually surprised that I'm not seeing a couple of YouTubers or podcasters in this list, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they probably didn't register as media. They probably just registered as just like, I don't know. Do you have to register if you go to a court case as a media, or would you register as court like as a YouTuber?
I don't know, man. We got to figure that out before we go out there, though.
Yeah, I need my press pass.
If anybody knows how to get one of those, please hit us up at our email. I'd appreciate that. We'd like to get the information there. And no, JLR is not on the list, Sandy Toes. I was hoping to see if he was. He has a website. I think it's like content, get your content or mycontent.com or something like that. I didn't see that one either on there. All right, so this is the motion to intervene. It's a few pages. It says on June 23rd, this court entered an order allowing 20 media outlets with the Associated Press as lead media outlet to intervene in this case for the limited purpose of challenging the then in place amended non-dissemination order granting motion to intervene for limited purpose at 1-2. At nearly identical media coalition at this time consisting of 13 outlets again seeking to intervene, this time for limited purpose of opposing Bryan C. Kohberger's motion to remove cameras in the courtroom, filed August 24, 2023, and it currently set for hearing on September 1st. And for any other proceedings affecting media access proceeding, including whether cameras will be allowed in the courtroom trial. All right, I want to see what's the so this is just basically the news media explaining or throwing in their opinions on some of the stuff that the defense was talking about, referencing like they were zooming in on Kohberger's fly, for instance, right? Yeah. And here it explains that a random X user, not the drug, the platform formerly known as Twitter, random X user modified a photo showing Kohberger and deputy entering the courtroom by cropping it out to a very small size and focused on his belt and adding a reference to Mr. Kohberger's fly. But here's the thing. For that to get back to Kohberger, right? Like, he has to really be looking into himself.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Case, man.
Well, I mean, that was on that picture was on a Twitter X user, and it was his own personal, Twitter and X, and it wasn't like he was, mainstream media or anything like that, or a podcaster. That's like if, your neighbor or something takes a picture of Bryan Kohberger, makes it look funny, and posts it up on his personal social media page. How is that, the responsibility of the news media?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. So yeah, they showed. They just have more images and links to some of those. Like for instance, this is the one for the fly, and whatnot. And so let's. I don't know. I hope they allow it. I know they're gonna figure it out come September 1st. It's gonna be a pretty big hearing. From what I understand, is they're gonna be allowing cameras into that hearing. So that kind of leads me to have a little bit of hope that they're probably going to let cameras in for the entire hearing. Now, I think we're going to end up having to wait until, after the hearing is over for the day, or an hour after it started, or 2 hours after it started, to see the beginning and whatnot. And stick with us, because we'll be live streaming that when that happens. Myself or Blue or Jaime, we'll be live streaming either all three of us at one, or one of us do one part of it, and such, but we'll be we'll be taking care of that case. So make sure you subscribe and hit that like button and ring that notification bell. We'd appreciate it. All right. So this one's just a notice regarding hearing. And
I think they're gonna wait to release the videos and like edit what they need to edit out to not be violating the court regulations they put in.
Yeah, I agree. So at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to allow folks to come onto the panel and, ask their questions, comments, the whole 9 yards, for us. Now, there's going to be a 3-minute timer for those that want to come out. And so you'll have 3 minutes. When you enter the stream, you're going to have to, let me invite it. I'm going to put the link in the StreamYard, and you enter the stream. You don't have to have your camera on when you come on screen, but I'm going to need your camera on when you're backstage so I can see that you're not trying to impress Blue or anything like that.
And guess what, guys? It didn't take much to impress me, so try your best. And just joking. Don't try your best. We want to keep the show on YouTube.
Yeah. We'll go to our Rumble page after this for that. All right. So the link is in there. If you have questions, comments, there's a lot of folks that don't agree with us. They think that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. Well, here's your opportunity to come out here and explain your piece. Let us know why you think he's not guilty, and give us your thoughts and theories, and we'll talk them with you. And if they make sense to us, maybe you'll change our mind. All right.
And yes, there was a winner for the blanket. It was a Canadian true crime. Somebody asked us today. And then see, I got my microphone ready so I can say, welcome to the Drunk Turkey Show. On tonight's episode, we have, and then we'll say your name.
And Golder Covered got one of our koozies. She really likes them. You guys got to become a member. We do giveaways. We give away our koozies. If you're interested in buying a koozie, just hit us up on our email. They're $12.
There's the one he has, and then there's the one I got. I like this one more.
That one's pretty dope. Yeah, and they wrap around. They wrap around. If you're interested in one, they're $12 plus shipping. Email us. We'll take order from PayPal and or Cash App. When you do put your order in, make sure to put your shipping address in the description. That is awesome.
They're gonna be at work, and they're gonna be seeing this beautiful face. Be thinking, I gotta drink more water.
So yeah, we don't got anybody up yet. If you have a comment, you don't have to disagree with us. If you agree with us, come on up. And if you're a creator, here's your opportunity.
Yeah. You can let everybody know what your show is and what you're about.
Yeah, 100%. So until somebody does come up, Blue, let's have a discussion, you and I.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to Bryan Kohberger possibly being a suspect in this case, and him not being deterred by the Range Rover that Kaylee had just purchased the day before, right? What does that tell you about him? Like, what can you deduce by knowing that there was a silver Range Rover that he may not have been aware of, and that did not deter him from entering in that building?
I think he had his mind already set. Like, he already had it planned, and maybe his outcome was maybe all six or whoever was in the house, but he got spooked, and when he heard Dylan, and he took off. So I think he was just there to commit a horrible crime, and just to like see if the police can even catch him, just to prove the police wrong.
I think it was a combination of motives. I don't think it was just the police thing, which is kind of what I explained. I think there was if you go back into his his writings, right? And he wrote that when it came to the visual snow, that some of the side effects were an empty feeling, kind of being a jerk, knowing that he's a jerk, things like that. And, he wanting to change it or whatever the case may be, but not being able to. I think that once he got into a situation where he was doing this survey and talking to ex-cons, I think there's a good opportunity that he may have talked to one that maybe started getting him to feel some things, based on living through them vicariously. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that could have happened.
I think it's a combination between that plus you have, what sounds like a narcissistic guy. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm none of those things. So I can't, say those stuff, but I will say that, the characteristic of him having to be the smartest person in the room. I think there was a statement that one of his classmates or friends had made, that he had stated that he could get any girl he wanted, things like that. You add that narcissistic to, the possibility of, revenge for the area, not, all that stuff. Then you come up with, all right, or we did, I think he wanted to commit this crime. He bought according to, what was it, NBC or whatever, he purchased the knife from Amazon. Now, I don't know how true it is. This is according to their sources. Purchased a knife on Amazon in April before he went out there. So that's before any problems started happening, except for he did get possibly rejected from the Pullman Police Department, the intern position, around that time. Do you think that was enough? I don't know if that's enough just to go off the end there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it was more his world was starting to crumble. His TA position was starting to get under fire. They were starting to possibly, they're giving the warnings and all the talkings they had with him about firing him. So that could have motivated him.
Yeah.
There was I want to say there's another reason out there that he hasn't said or we haven't found out yet. I want to say he probably met one of them before, or maybe he was cyber stalking them with burner accounts. We don't know that.
I'm pretty positive he was.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason why, he chose that house. Out of all the houses, he chose one right in the middle of, town, right next to an apartment complex where there could be a lot of witnesses, and he still almost got away with it. I think if it was just somebody that wanted to do something random, you would pick a house not on the edge of town where there's nobody there. You would do it like most of the serial killers do. They stalk elderly people because nobody goes around them that much. It's just one person.
No, I agree. Sonny D comes in saying no one wanted him and he wanted revenge, especially with law enforcement because he didn't make it to the program. I can see that being a possibility, especially we went through WSU police and Pullman Police's requirements for certain aspects, as far as how they get them to requirements for them to join. And with the Pullman Police Department, there's a background check, even for just a ride along for a 16-year-old. So I would assume for the intern position that there's probably an even more extensive one. The WSU police stated that in part of their background check was that they, if there was any sort of law breaking done, even if it didn't lead to an arrest or a conviction or anything, let's just say recreational drug use. If he put that there, that could be a reason for him not to be accepted into the program. And so I'm thinking if he didn't get accepted into the program based on that, don't you think he would have probably felt that it was going to be impossible to get selected into this program, knowing that he can't change that from his past? I mean, there's nothing you can do to take that out of your past. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
And so for me, when it came to the car, when it came to a vehicle being out there at that he's possibly had never seen. The only logical explanation, which does match some of the information and the evidence that we do have, that perhaps he was trying to commit the perfect crime, and not just the perfect crime, but make it a huge crime that would grab national attention.
It's a link. What was the link at? So we can throw it out there again. Everybody's
what?
asking why nobody's calling to get on.
Oh yeah, I put it in like twice. It's a StreamYard link. If you guys are interested, just you know what, I'm gonna pin it. Let me go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
Take our
see
other
that?
pin.
It's right there. If anybody wants to jump on, just click on the link and it should send you to us. Yeah,
Boom! I just replaced it.
there's a lot of crazy cases out there. I was just listening to one. I think I sent to us on the chat where the prisoner ladies, she's like, they call me cornbread. You remember that one?
Yeah.
It's, she killed her husband after she cooked him some cornbread. So people go crazy.
Hey, Blue, mute yourself when you're moving the mic, my man. I can hear it. It's
I
all
was
good. Okay.
hanging the cord because it got stuck.
See, for me, I think that seeing the silver car and it not deter him, there has to be a reason, because if his goal was committing the perfect crime and it'd just be a singular target, I don't think he would have gone into a house full of people and a vehicle outside would deter him, because that's not a part of the plan. All right. And so the fact that it didn't deter him told me one of a couple things. Either he was forced to do it that night for whatever reason, or it was a part of the it didn't matter because it was a part of his plan. If his plan was to gain national attention, the more people involved, the bigger the attention would be. Don't you agree to that? Muted.
I said, dang. I said he was striving for attention, so I think he tried to do a crime that was impossible to solve. He left one key item behind. That blows my mind. Without that, we would still be looking for somebody, I think.
Yeah. And I think that if it was, let's just say it wasn't that, right? Let's just take that off the table. That he was trying to create a national attention crime that would remain unsolved, right? Let's just say it was a necessity. What are some of the reasons why you think that he would have had to have done it that night?
I think because Thanksgiving was still coming up, right? It was. I can't remember the date no more.
Right, but why not do it like on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday, where the likelihood of a party being going on in the area is less likely, and they would be at their residence more than likely than out somewhere else partying. I think there were single girls in majority of them. And even if they're not, who's to say they don't go spend the night at a friend's house or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I think the likelihood is higher for something like that to happen on a weekend versus a weekday.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a lot more commotion going on the weekends. Like that night, the game was going on. There was people going home from parties and stuff. Right before he had more chance of getting seen that day, so maybe he liked the idea of like how complicated it would have been to pull it off.
Right. Now, do you think that it's possible he was aware of the task force that was out there, stopping underage drinking or targeting underage drinking, the ones that ended up stopping the 3 kids in the band field?
Um, I don't think it's possible unless he saw them or they mention it, because like here in San Antonio, we know that they mention it all the time during fiesta. It's like, hey, no, it's no refusal weekend or no refusal week as a fiesta.
All right. So you think maybe it was broadcasted that Saturday was going to be don't be underage drinking because we're going to be out there. But
Yeah,
well, here's the thing though. I think that he may have had knowledge that maybe not everybody would have, being his position as a TA in the criminal justice department. Is it possible that he overheard or got privileged to knowing somehow that there was going to be a task force that night, trying to deter underage drinking, effectively stopping partying going on as well because of loud noise complaints?
yeah, there could have been a possibility because maybe somebody in the criminal criminal justice department could be a sheriff or could be a off duty security officer, work for the sheriff department part time. Because I know back when we were in school, our criminal justice teacher was one of the detectives for the police, and he was he would get called in sometimes part like on cases to help out if they were a little stumped.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if you remember him. I took criminal justice, I think, my senior year.
Yeah, I took criminal justice too. Yeah, it was all right, man. I took criminal justice in high school. I did attend a couple of semesters in college. I took some criminal justice there too,
Nice.
but I need to finish that.
Yes,
uh,
it's not too bad. It's not too
yeah.
bad.
Well, I haven't needed to use it. I own a business and I haven't needed to use a degree,
Yeah.
but they are good. I'm not saying they're not. They're not good for anything, but I haven't needed one. Let's see.
Be
Oh,
safe
nice.
out
Thank
there.
you. Be safe. So, if he was aware and he knew that this was a party house and that you're probably going to have some houses out there, you know, maybe having some music or stuff going on, but it's not going to be as typical as a usual weekend out there in that area with police there deterring alcohol related crimes. And I think maybe that could be an indication to him, like, hey, there's a lot of people there. Typically it's going to be quiet now because the cops are there. Perhaps they'll go out to the bars and drink because of this, and that ensures that they're intoxicated, also being a weekend, and also kind of guarantees that they'll be home around 2 in the morning, without a party or an after party to host in the area. The likelihood of them being home and asleep when he decides to go out there, it's greater than not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh
I
wow.
think. Yeah, I was reading that one. And I was like, man, that's a good one. Maybe he wants to come on and talk about the time he was there in class with them.
Yeah. If you would, by any chance, did you ever hear why he was released from his, what was it, like law enforcement type of classes that he was in? I think he was taken out, and then he was in the HVAC class. Yeah, if not tonight, hit us up on our email, and maybe we can get you on and ask you a couple questions. All right. Open Mind says Kohberger is not the guy. Come on up. Let's hear what you have to say. I'm more than happy to hear why you think he's not the guy. A lot of folks don't. Well, here I don't know about a lot of folks, but here we don't shy away from the opposite ideas. Now, I think there's a room for opposition. If you're too much one way, everybody's has the same idea. It's just one, you miss out on things, and it just does. You're not well rounded, in my opinion. But come
Well,
on up. I'd like to hear it.
every theoretical theory has a negation. So y'all have a negation. Let's listen to it.
You have a what?
Negation, which means the opposite. These like yeah, doing theories of math. Negation is like in the sentence, um, the phone is green, and then it asks you to do the negation of it. Is you would say the phone is not green. That's the negation of it. The opposite.
Yeah. So Ricky said, or Ricky Van says, just joined this live right now. I've never heard why he got kicked out of that law enforcement class. I can call in next time y'all do a live. We did speak occasionally as we were both interested in the military and law enforcement. I ended up going into the Army after high school and have many associates in criminal justice. I actually got an offer for Suffolk County PD, same county as Rex Huerman. Wow. Yeah, I'm familiar with that case and whatnot. Yeah, send us an email. Maybe we can get together. We'll have a specific show and we'll talk about that time. But thank you for your services. Also, we appreciate your services. Thank you. In my opinion, two other guys were involved, but not knowing what the extent was, not knowing of what was the extent to happen. So here's my only thoughts when it comes to other people being involved. Kohberger was on the loose for 6-7 weeks. Nobody dimed him out. Right? Nobody came forward. Nobody said anything. I think that has to do with a lot of trust. And if you trust somebody to commit a crime with, or that is not going to dime you out or bring you up in conversation, I think that tells me there should be some form of communication between Bryan Kohberger on his devices to said accomplices. I want to say thank you, Canadian True Crime Buff, always coming in with a 5 gifted memberships. Make sure you guys have your membership gifts turned on if you want to receive those. And so, they have Kohberger's phone, they have his tablet, his, tower. And I don't think that Kohberger meets somebody in Moscow, Idaho for the first time and says, hey, let's be friends, but let's do it all on burner phones. Yeah. So that nobody knows that we're talking. And then within the next 6 weeks, I'm assuming he met them in the first week he was there. And what was that? Maybe 12 weeks in the next 11 weeks, because we're going to plan on doing a murder in the next 11 weeks. I don't see how that's a possibility or plausibility. Is it possible that there was other people involved? I guess. I just don't think that they would be free still if there was. What do you think, Blue?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I have the door slammed. Let me check. Make sure my kids didn't jump in here.
No problem, my man. I know you got your kiddos there coming in every now and then.
Yeah, sorry, they opened the door. Let me just tell them.
Yeah. So what do you think of the possibility of that of an accomplice?
I think the possibility of an accomplice, it's possible, but I would think that's why I always had that thought, that 10% thought in my head that somebody else might have been involved when he said who else was arrested. I know everybody says he's worried about his family because he was at their home, but I don't know, that in my head it's like maybe somebody helped plan it, or maybe somebody helped maybe discard the stuff. Right. Not that they helped them with the actual crime, but maybe he stopped by and had somebody hold something for them. Because he did make an awkward round after the crime.
But you see, I think this guy, we have to know who he is, right? This is a very intelligent guy. This is a guy that understands probably more than most. I'll be honest, I didn't know, and this is just anecdotal, but I don't know very many PhD law enforcement officers. I really don't. That goes for detectives. That goes for any of those things. Now, I had a friend of mine who had a master's degree, who ended up being in law enforcement. He had a master's degree in psychology. He was actually a professor at a nearby university, and he was a police officer for some time before he became a federal agent. But I think he used the officer as a springboard so that he can go faster, including his his master's degree in the federal world, right? And so, in my opinion, he's smarter than most. He's going to understand law enforcement techniques and investigative practices, right, that the cops are going to do. And so when you have that big old loop, what that tells me is that he knows that his car is going to be on surveillance, and that they're going to try to trace his car and look for his car either leaving Moscow. And if it doesn't leave, if they don't have video footage of it leaving Moscow, they're going to check the nearby cities, and they're going to look at the camera to see if that white Elantra came in within the appropriate time that they would have expected it. So if you had a town 20 minutes away, and you had a crime that, you see the car leaving at 4:20, you would probably assume that vehicle is going to be arriving, 10 minutes at 4:30, and at the latest 4:50. You wouldn't expect it to be arriving an hour later. Now, what he did was, and you can go through the probable cause affidavit. The probable cause affidavit states that law enforcement officers assumed, and I'm paraphrasing here, they assumed that he may have taken a right turn on Palouse River Drive because that road leads directly to Moscow, to Pullman. I'm sorry. Now, we know that he doesn't go that way. What that tells me, though, is that that he may have, but we know that his phone turns on near Blaine, Idaho at 4:48. So he didn't go straight to Pullman. We know that. Yeah. And so why would he do that? My opinion, he's going around, and I'll bring it up here in a second. I think one is he's going around the cameras at Palouse River Drive and at 95 and going this weird route, so that way he can elude cameras. And then when they go check Pullman or they check anywhere else, there's no cameras, there's no white Elantra entering. That's going to make law enforcement assume that the person that committed this crime lives in Moscow. We have somebody in the back scene. I hope you're ready. I'm going to go ahead and bring you up.
Hey.
How's it going? How are you doing?
Good. Were there 7,600 people at that game that night?
There may have been. I'm not sure.
Or 76,000. Well, my point is, there's like 3 or 4 guys just walking around. I mean, where's everybody else? Because I thought that was kind of odd.
It was
yeah, that's that.
And then that cop called for them to come over, and that guy said, "Oh, I thought it was a fake person you were talking to." Did you hear that part?
No. What is it? Where are you talking about? I'm confused a little bit.
I'm sorry. That out of like all 25,000 students, like 1 was caught stealing a sign, and 4 were caught, drinking,
right.
Walking home drunk. Well, the cop called for them, and they kept walking, and they told the cop finally that they thought he was talking to someone that was fake. I swear, I'm not lying. But did they check the drains in the showers, do you think?
In the victim's house?
Yes.
Oh, I'm fairly positive that they checked the drains. They probably went up and down trying to find any evidence as they possibly can in that house. But when it comes to the attendance at Kibble Dome, which is the the dome used for the vandals, it only holds 16,000 people.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm not, I don't think that it was 70 something, but yeah, it's 16,000. I would assume that it was probably full capacity given the fact that it was the last home game and, it was the homecoming game and things of that nature. But yeah. And as far as the guy stealing the sign and all those other stuff, I get it. It looks weird. It does. But
It's something that college kids do.
Yeah, if it's a stop sign, that would be dangerous.
right. No, I agree. It's not safe. Regardless of what type of sign it is, it's not safe to remove those. But I've seen that, and I've had people ask me questions about, what do you think about this person or this call that happened that night? And I'll say this, and this is completely anecdotal as well. But when I was on the force, there was a crap ton of calls that came in that had nothing to do with each other. Majority of them really didn't. And so outside of these calls being inside the city of Moscow and late at night, I don't know if there's really a connection there.
And then why would he go to Idaho when Washington doesn't have the death penalty?
Well, I think
go ahead.
I don't. Sorry about that. I think that when it comes to him not wanting to do it in Washington, I don't think he ever anticipated on getting caught. So whether they had the death penalty or not, I don't think that was a part of his planning. I think that it was probably more important to him to commit this crime, not in Pullman, because then there's a possibility he could track back to him. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. His minor was like in forensic cloud or the cloud forensic. So I don't understand why he would make stupid mistakes with his phone. Why didn't he leave it at home?
Well, I think that he took it with him, and I think that maybe perhaps he did see Dylan as he was walking out, and the urge to know if 911 was called, what was going on. He may have had like a phone scanner app on his phone.
Oh.
And if he had those type of things, he may have gone back to try to listen to see if what's going on with the call, because somebody saw him as he was leaving.
Well,
I think my theory
walking around with the knife, just the knife leaving. Go ahead, Blue. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, don't you think that would feel kind of weird? You're just walking around with a knife with not a cover.
I agree, but I think he didn't have time to go up and find the sheath. In my opinion. Team Rose, I'll be having you on in about 1 minute.
I can go. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, Tara Blue.
I want to say thank you. And where are you from? Because your accent sounds very familiar. Oh, she took off.
Yeah, she's actually emailed me a handful of times, so I'm familiar with who she is. Team Rose, welcome to the Drunk Turkey Show. How you doing?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Hi, guys.
How are you doing? So what are your thoughts on the case? What is your mindset?
I got a really big, crazy, wild theory. It's probably totally going to seem outlandish. Usually my theories seem completely outlandish until a year goes by and then everybody realizes I was right. Sometimes it takes 2 years. But where are you guys with it? What was the new docs? Just before I get into my thing, what was the new thing?
The new docs really weren't much. It was just basically, let me kind of pull them back, that they're not going to cross-examine, the state's not going to cross-examine the witnesses from the defense that have anything to do with the IGG. That tells me that they don't really anticipate it being used. They also put down another case that had to deal with the SNP profile and how that was utilized and accepted in court.
Wait. What's the IGG? What does that mean?
That is the genetic tree that the FBI created from the DNA on the sheath to link back to Kohberger from his distant family members.
Yeah, I always thought that seemed a little weird.
It
What do you guys think happened? What is it? Do you both agree on what you think, or do you have different points of view?
I think we're probably both on the same page here.
What's that?
We think that more. Well, here, me personally, I think he more than it. I think that if he ends up being found not guilty or acquitted or whatever the case may be, I think it's because of the state's case. I think it's weak, and I think that some of the warrants that they got for his case, like the phone pings, is weak, and I think that that's going to be his phone activity is going to be extremely important, because if the defense can get out the phone locations and the fact that he turned his phone off before the murders and turned it back on afterwards, that's a big piece of circumstantial evidence that if the jury doesn't hear, could be a problem. And so that's kind of where I sit on it. I'm a little bit, I've been on closer to 50-50 before, but what ended up changing my mind more than anything was the DNA, or what had me thinking that there was a possibility that it wasn't him, was the fact that Howard Bloom had came out and said that the DNA on the sheath wasn't found in Moscow lab, and that they had to send it to the Othram lab in Texas to find this speck of DNA. I felt that probably wouldn't fly in court, and I don't know how accurate that could have been. But come to find out, Howard Bloom was extremely inaccurate in his statement. What had happened was Moscow lab had found the DNA, and he created an STR profile, and that they entered that profile into CODIS, and that is basically to check criminals and things of that nature, to check their DNA, and that came back with nothing. And so they had to then create a lab, or not create a lab, I'm sorry. They then had to create a SMP profile. The FBI took over. They did that whole genetic tree, and they basically said, all right, state, we can't say that it's Kohberger or not, because we're not testing directly Bryan Kohberger's DNA to the knife sheath, the DNA left on the knife sheath. But what we're saying is that based on our information, it's more than likely him. Now,
what do you personally feel deep down?
Oh yeah, he did it.
Do you think he had help?
I don't think he had help.
You think he's a single? So what do you think his motivation was?
The motivation, I think, happened was, all right, so he purchased the knife, according to NBC, off of Amazon in April of 2022. In April 2022, we have the email from Gary Jenkins, the chief of police for the Pullman Police Department, and Bryan Kohberger, basically Bryan thanking him for meeting with him and referencing the internship. And well, we know from the probable cause affidavit he had to apply again in the fall. That tells me he didn't get the job in the spring, if he had to apply in the fall for the spring again. So I don't think that that's a coincidence that he had that.
No,
I
but
think
what's the motivation to kill those 4 people?
Well, I don't think it was so much those 4 people. I think that when you look at how his teaching assistantship program, or his assistant teaching program, was going to hell, he was fixing to get kicked out. He had problems with his professor. He had to apply twice for the Pullman police internship. They do a background check on him. And I'm assuming that the first background and the first time that he didn't get approved was probably because of his heroin use in his past. That was one of the reasons why that they could not choose you or select you as being an officer. And so you had a lot of things going down at the wrong time. You also have a man who in his past indicated that he had struggled with feelings and emotions, and that he had to become a vegan to suppress some of the feelings he was having. The fact that he's still continuing his diet as a vegan, not necessarily because he's trying to avoid, foods from animals, but to control the symptoms, tells me that he's still having those symptoms. And
what symptoms? What do you mean feelings? What feelings?
So he wrote down that he turned to being a vegan because he had no feelings. He had a feeling of emptiness, and that he, that he was I think his words were, an asshole to his parents. He didn't mean to be, and he doesn't understand why he's this way. He's an outcast, like a bunch of things like that. And, the concerning part was just the fact that he just said that he didn't have any feelings and he didn't have any emotions and stuff. And so then you have the Pullman Police Department, the whole school just kind of turning on him. And you have this guy who's hyper intelligent and understands the law, a guy that has been described also as having to be the smartest person in the room. I think that when you add all those things up, a narcissistic possibility characteristic to this guy who's trying to find feelings, who ends up creating a Reddit post that talks to ex-cons in reference to their feelings. Is it possible that he started to get feelings while he was talking to those, learning about those crimes? I think there's a good possibility
So
there.
when you say ex-con, you mean murderers?
I don't know. That's what his word was in his survey, that he is looking for ex-cons.
So, but oh wait, okay. So he's fascinated by criminals. He's fascinated by murderers. He's fascinated by crime, law. He studies and he wants to know what a murderer is like. He's intrigued. He's all in. He's a weird guy. Sounds like a sociopath. He has no feelings. He's not connected to his humanity. Maybe he wanted to know what it was like to kill.
I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think the motivation behind it, the final straw.
Team Rose, excuse me, does not think he's innocent, Sonia D.
So,
but anyway,
I think
we can agree that he probably, because we need motive, right? Why did he kill those students?
So my theory. Oh, go ahead, Blue.
I said that's the piece of the puzzle that we're still missing.
All right. Do you think he would do it? Do you think he would do it for money?
No, I think he did it as a revenge plot, not necessarily on those girls, but on law enforcement, school, and local authority. Now he had.
Why don't you? First of all, where do you guys live? What state are you?
We live in Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay. So you know that you've heard of hitmen.
Right. No, I've heard of that, but I think that in this case, there's enough to say that he was having problems at school. He was having problems at work with his teacher's assistant. There were kids that were complaining on him, apparently, and there was a female student that other PhD students wouldn't allow Bryan Kohberger to be around by himself
at that specific university.
Right. And so I think that if Kohberger would have targeted somebody in Pullman and or try to embarrass the Pullman Police Department for not selecting him, would have led back to him. And this guy's super intelligent.
But that's not enough of that. Okay, so he's hurt. His feelings are hurt. He's upset. He got rejected. He's been rejected plenty of times in high school. Low self-esteem is common for this guy. That's not going to make him go into a building and kill four people with one knife all by himself. Getting rejected by all of that stuff that's all good information for creating his personality profile and what he's going through type of thing. But to physically stab and he gutted those students, and he gutted those students gang style. That was not, we were not told the full story on the killings. They kept it a secret, the degree to which those bodies were mutilated, and they gutted them in a way. See, the reason I think it's gang related and drug related and drug lord gang related, all that rejection sat there as resentment. Then the other stressors piled on. Sure. Yeah, I'm having an intense day, so I sound intense. I've been sort of ranting and raving privately to myself very loudly all day, and I keep thinking, thank God there's no other people around me, because I'm like so pissed off about so many things. I keep like talking to myself, trying to sort it out. But anyway, I am interested in this case, and I do think he's going to get off, and I think he was always going to get off, and I bet you any amount of money he's going to get off, and they're going to fabricate all this these technical reasons that everyone's going to spend, weeks trying to understand, trying to make sense, right? But the bottom line is, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, obviously. We don't know anything, for Pete's sake. We know nothing. It's all alleged, guys. First of all, this is alleged. It's for entertainment purposes only. I'm just giving you my personal opinion, which is all alleged, right? So I'm allegedly telling you my alleged thoughts. And you can respectfully disagree. I'm just up here telling my points, okay? A lot of people disagree with me until 2 years goes by. You wait and see. He's never going to serve time. I promise you. I put money on it. Who wants to make a bet?
I've already made enough bets, probably enough money.
I love it when people ask me if I was there, but they act like they know more than me. Were you there? Were you there? You know? Were you?
And I see you, Matt and
all right,
J.R.
so listen,
Brown.
guys,
I'll have you guys on in just a second.
All right, I try not to take too much time. Just to finish my thing. The reason I think that is because of the two mothers that are involved with drugs. Because that whole area is heavy into drugs. I think this goes way deeper. I think Bryan Kohberger, to me, he's one of those weird guys. We don't know his relationship with his mother. Some of these guys are, this goes really deep, guys. I don't know how deep you like to go, but there's a lot of deep stuff that's layered that people don't realize and they have no idea about. And there's feuds between families, and they can use their daughters and their sons as warnings and don't mess with me. And, oh, you think I didn't mean it? Well, watch what happens. Now, where are they going to get a hitman? They need a hitman. Now, I'm from New York. So New Yorkers are hitman is not a fantasy. New Yorkers are like, hitmen's a dime a dozen, and you can hire them for pretty cheap too. And I just personally think that, and anybody can disagree with me. Obviously, this is alleged. I'm just giving you my random opinion. But I think he's definitely not going to go to jail. I think they hired him. I think he took the money. I think he wanted to kill. I think he wanted to know what it was like. I think he's a weird, obsessed sociopath, a narcissist, like you said. I think he's got his own damaged bullshit. I think he took the money and he did it because he doesn't feel anything. And maybe he thought if he killed all those people, he'd feel something. Maybe, you know what I mean? And now killing is addictive, by the way. It's as addictive as heroin or any cigarettes or anything. So now we've got a serial killer on our hands, in my opinion. And I think he's going to get off and they're going to use him to kill again. And I think he wanted to get caught. That's why he went back to the scene of the crime. And to me, the whole thing was a setup. And I think that he knew he was going to get caught, and he was promised he would get off, and he will. So that's what I think. But thanks, guys.
No problem.
You can drop in if you want, because I know my views are controversial, but I come from New York. Hitmen is a very common thing. You say a hitman to a New Yorker, they don't flinch and act like it's a crazy weird thing. They're like, oh yeah, you better watch your ass.
The only thing that I'll say about this hitman theory is he purchased the knife in April 2022. Somebody's going to call a hit on 4 sorority girls from a guy in Pennsylvania.
No.
That early?
No. It's a drug. You see, this is gang related.
Okay.
Gangs are fierce, ferocious, vicious. They don't screw around. You don't mess with them. They mean it, and they will prove it. And also, the 2 girls that got saved, the fact that he said to that one girl, I'm here to help you. Okay, that's very suspicious right there. This to me was all pre-planned. And the fact that he's going to get off, it just proves it. It just proves it to me that he was promised, if you do this, you will get off. So there's a lot of benefits for him personally. A, he gets to find out how to kill. B, he gets paid, so he gets some money. C, he's in with some weird sicko gang cult. Now he's being used and praised, and now he's got a purpose. He has no feelings, so he has no humanity, so he doesn't give a shit. He's got no conscience. So he's the perfect hitman, killer, assassin. He's training. He's into it. He's interested in it. He's got all kinds of reasons to do this job. Hitmen are not good people. They don't have conscience.
Sorry about that. I'm gonna have to cut this off short just because we're well past the 3 minutes, and I have two other folks that are in here. You can come back in a little bit if you want. No disrespect or anything like that. I'm just gonna give these other two folks an opportunity as well. As far, I do want to say something though. As far as it being drug related or hitman related, uh, honestly, I don't think that that's the case in this situation. Um, you know, to get in contact with Bryan, of all people, who's new there, it's, I don't know, maybe, but I don't think so. All right, Matt, how's it going? Thank you for joining, and J.R. Brown as well.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's going okay. How about you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. What are your thoughts on the case?
Well, as far as everything we know right now, I don't think it's hitman or gang related. I'm gonna put my faith that law enforcement's doing their due diligence, with the work they're doing. And right now I do believe it was Bryan Kohberger. And if it was a hitman or something like that, I don't know. If someone ordered a hit on these people, like there was a couple of them that weren't supposed to even be there.
So I also agree that it was Bryan Kohberger. I had a little doubts a few weeks ago when there was no DNA in his car or apartment. But he's not going to be a dumbass on everything. Maybe just his phone thinks he was a dumbass and using his car. But he's not going to be a dumbass on his car and apartment. That's just my opinion.
No, I understand. Thank you.
I
agree.
Mean
No, it's fine. Am I echoing still? Do you guys hear an echo?
No, you're good now.
Okay. All right. So as far as, no DNA in the car, I think that when it comes to that aspect of it, he had time to prepare his car. He had time to clean his car. So him not making mistakes in the preparation of the crime, given his experience and knowledge in the field, doesn't surprise me. The fact that he didn't make many mistakes after the crime doesn't surprise me. What doesn't also surprise me is if he's a first-time, life taker. His actions showed mistakes happening very early. So at 3:56, he has passing by for the third time around the apartment complex next to the victim's residence. At 4:05 is the next time he passes by, and at that point he starts to drive erratic. Between that time, we know that the DoorDash order was received. My thoughts are that there was a light on, probably on the second floor, because it was received by Xana as an indicator to the DoorDasher that, hey, this is the house, because the house was kind of confusing. The address was King Road, but it was facing Queen. And so I would assume, especially if Xana did this often, ordered DoorDash, that she would have an indicator out there. And my assumption is once the DoorDash left, she no longer needed that indicator on, so she turned it off. So when Bryan Kohberger came at 4:05, from his point of view, when he passed by at 3:56, a light was on. When he passes by at 4:05, a light is off. And that's when he starts to drive weird. He does his weird turnaround at apartment 52.
Okay, so don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like I said, I don't mean to interrupt you, but he has planned this. He just didn't do a random house.
No, I agree.
Right?
What I'm saying is,
I've had two kids at college. This is not a random thing. He has some connection, and even the victims might not know that he has a connection with them, but he has some connection to one of the victims.
maybe I think that if there was a connection, they would have looked at him harder. If he had messaged one of the girls or did anything like that.
Hadn't he been messaging Kaylee?
I don't think so, because I think that forensics would have seen that. And per the state's paperwork, the DLJ policy indicates that they can only do that IgG test if there's no leads or there's no suspect. So I think if there was somebody that was constantly in her inbox or some of those things, and also drove a white 4-door Elantra, that would spark some alarms among law enforcement, and they would have definitely looked at him harder. So based on that, I don't think that there was a connection. I honestly, truly think that he wanted to commit the biggest unsolved crime, and in order to do that,
I agree. I think he wanted to commit a crime to see if he could get by with it.
Right,
also,
and not just.
Wow, not pick a random house. Like
I don't think it was random. I think he went out one night and went looking for the house with the biggest party. And there's reasons why. A house with big parties that has a lot of people inside, a lot of DNA swapped in and out, a lot of footprints that go around the house. There's a lot of things that can naturally hide his trace or tracks into the house and out of the house. And he looked for one with girls.
Hazmat suit on. He had multiple shoe protectors. Every room he went in, he would take his shoe protectors off and put it in the pockets. That's what I think. That's why there's no shoe print, bloody shoe print.
If I'm just gonna add a little something here. I think
I was just about to ask you.
My perspective on it is, there was one male there. He wasn't expected to be there anyway. But, it's 3 females, and, he obviously, as you said, I think he waited for them to go to sleep. So he's looking for the easiest targets in my eyes, the people who put up the least amount of struggle, just giving him the most amount of success, doing murders. So, I think they were soft targets. He picked females deliberately, maybe had a personal vendetta, but, I just think it was the easiest thing for him to get done in order for him to get away with this.
I think that I don't think there was the personal vendetta part, just because there was a forensic download on the victims' phones and everything. If there was any contact between Kohberger and these victims, I think they would have caught it. And I don't think Kohberger had enough time or any of the means to completely wipe out any connection that he had off of the victims' phones during the commission of the crime. My thoughts were,
I think that Ethan was asleep.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think that 3 of the victims were asleep.
I do think Ethan was asleep. I think Xana was awake.
So if we look at some of the things that we know, right, that or that we have heard and assume, one of the things was that Chief Fry, in one of the interviews that he had recently had early on at the press conference, he had mentioned that the rear sliding glass door was still open when officers arrived. That tells me that he didn't, based on that statement, that tells me a few things. I think that the door was opened when Bryan Kohberger entered the house, and it remained open the entire time. So my thoughts are, he sees the light turn off. His goal is to not get caught. So he opens the sliding glass door.
How come he didn't kill Dylan? Or
I'll explain that. So he walks in through the back sliding glass door, and he leaves the glass door open, because if he touches it to close it, then he's going to have to grab it to open it. And that's 2 times that he'd have to contact that door. That's 2 times that he's possibly going to get his DNA left there. So he leaves it open. Now, the reason why he doesn't go to the second floor is because there was just a light on for the DoorDasher. If I was in his shoes or thinking for him or whatever, I would assume that the easier targets would be upstairs, because there hasn't been lights on for a while. And there were 2 girls. If he had some sort of way of stalking or any of those things, he would have known that they've been intoxicated, and whoever's on the second floor just went to sleep, so they'd not be in that deep sleep. So he goes upstairs.
Daniel, he 100% targeted these girls. One of the girls he has targeted. 100%. He didn't pick a random house. I'm going to go murder people at this house and see if I get by with it.
No, I think there's more to it. I think that he wanted to not just get away with it, but I think he was trying to embarrass law enforcement simultaneously at the same time. And by getting away with this crime and creating all this media attention, all these people looking in this direction, looking at the Moscow Police Department under a microscope and picking apart everything that they have ever done. And it's worked. It's worked to a certain extent.
So
now,
is it true that he went back that morning and he went back the morning after he murdered? He went back that morning and people could see his car in that area. Is that true? Do you have proof of that?
Well, let me get back to the first part. So I think that the reason why there's, Ethan was asleep was I think that Xana probably felt the draft. She was still awake. She wasn't asleep. She may have felt the draft inside the house and went to go investigate that door or where this air was coming from. Sees the glass door open and says, I think someone's here. Turns around and goes back towards her bedroom. At that point, Bryan Kohberger may have heard, that statement or have been coming down the stairs at that time, creeping down and saw that somebody was awake. Well, because if his goal is to embarrass law enforcement and make sure that there's national attention, the goal would be to have multiple victims. Now, the victims that are going to gain national attention are going to be young and attractive, right? And so he goes out and he finds the house with the biggest party. This is one of the houses that had big parties. And he finds a house that has female victims that are easier to target. And the reason why a new Range Rover, extra cars parked up front don't bother him is because it wasn't about a single target. It was about gaining more national attention and having multiple targets.
It's Kaylee. It's because she had got a new vehicle. He wouldn't have known about that new vehicle, right?
I mean, he wouldn't have known. But to him, it could have been a boyfriend. It could have been a visitor. It doesn't matter. It's just one more victim to make this crime even bigger. So that way there's more attention to it.
What I want to know is, did he go back out that next morning and someone has it on video that he went back out?
I'm not sure. I do know that the probable cause affidavit states that there's multiple footage of the vehicle, so there's possibility of that. I'm gonna have to jump over to Matt and then Sonia. No, you're fine. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate you. All right, Matt, before we get to Sonia, you were saying again?
Yeah, so just to go a little bit background, so I was Bryan Kohberger's classmate at MCTI in the HVAC program. Yeah, that's okay. I was Rick Evam in the chat.
There it is. Yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my dog's Maverick name backwards.
Oh.
I was in the MCTI class with him. I was born and raised in East Stroudsburg. I was born in the Pocono Medical Center. I lived there up until I went in the Army, so I know that whole area like the back of my hand. And in fact, the teacher for the HVAC class was a close family friend of mine. And he lived in the same development as my father even. I haven't heard anything or seen anything of him like coming out saying anything, but I've always been interested, in his perspective and, Bryan's behavior, things like that. But
so when you were in his HVAC class, did he come in the middle of it?
No, he started at the beginning of the year, just like any normal year. So it was my sophomore to junior year. It was his senior year. So I just knew him for that one school year.
Got you. And I noticed in the chat you said that you and him had an interest in law enforcement and Army. Was there any conversations that had any red flags to you about those topics? Thinking back now.
Right. No red flags, honestly. Yeah, I was interested in criminal justice in the military, like him. I went in the Army straight out of high school, and then after high school, I got my associates in criminal justice. But when talking, he didn't really give off red flags. The only thing I could really say was that he was socially awkward in the context of especially maintaining eye contact during conversation. He's like, his eyes would like bolt at you for a second, and then he would just go back to like looking at the ground. It was just kind of weird in that way. Not normal, but he was just socially awkward that way. That's just something I always noticed. And the other thing was at the time he was really big into boxing, so he was shadow boxing like all the time, and like just pretending like to box in the air, like just I guess doing moves that he learned recently because he lost a whole bunch of weight then through boxing.
Yeah. Did you ever hear him talk about any girlfriends or girls?
No, don't recall any girlfriends or girls. There's actually that girl Casey who's come out recently, who was also a member at MCTI. I've seen her around. That's about the only one who I knew that he was friends with. Other than that, I knew of like no affairs or like interests he had with females.
Interesting. And you never noticed any? Did you ever see him hanging out with anybody at or anything like that? Did he have friends outside of Casey?
No. Yeah, no, I didn't notice that either. I didn't notice his friend group after school or anything like that. The only thing about MCTI is that multiple school districts come there because that's just the way that the school works. So you could hang out. If you went to one school, you could be hanging out with kids from another school, after class, whatever. So just for some background. But as far as me knowing Bryan Kohberger and his friend group and stuff like that, I honestly didn't know.
Gotcha. And did you ever hang out with him after school or anything?
So no, I also never hung out with him after school. I really don't have a lot of information to give other than
okay.
Other than me seeing him in class and having conversation with him and doing his boxing stuff. But I never hung out with him after class. And even following this case, I learned that he lived, about 2 miles away from where my father lived at the time. I hadn't even known that he lived that close. So that was also interesting to learn.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to learn. There's been rumors saying, circling around that he was a bit of a bully. Do you know that it was accurate or not?
Yeah, I do know of that. He wasn't like, like taking your lunch money kind of thing. But as far as the whole thing goes with him, like trying to be the one who knows the most in the room and like things like that, he definitely gave off that kind of vibe in class. He would, if you were kind of like questioning his intelligence or going head to head with him on a subject, he would kind of just keep questioning things, that kind of went in his favor, more like rhetorical questions that you like couldn't answer directly, but it was just kind of like to prove his point. And like that way he always came out on top of the conversation. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's something I did notice also.
So it seems accurate. The smartest person in the room description, that seems accurate towards Kohberger.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely.
Gotcha. And I mean, he didn't get any problems though. Did he get any detention, trouble with school, fights in school, anything like that?
Yeah, right. I never noticed that. That's why I really would like to hear from the teacher, because I didn't notice any like disciplinary stuff with him. But I don't recall any specific times, but I feel like he got into it with the teacher sometimes here and there, but I can't say that for fact. That's something I'd really like to learn from the teacher in the class, because I feel like he would definitely be able to recall that.
Yeah, for sure. What about so you say you live in the Poconos. What about Dana Smithers? Have you heard about her case? Have you ever heard anything about that?
Yeah. So again, following this case, I learned of Dana Smithers, and I know exactly where her body was found. The recruiting station, actually, for when I went in the Army, is just on the other side of that bridge of actually where she was found.
Oh, wow.
It used to be a Waffle House right over there, and if you go up the road a couple miles, it's actually pretty like bad neighborhood. Besides that, it's really it's next to what's called Main Street. That's where the recruitment center was, and that's, you know, if you live in Stroudsburg, that's where you go to party and drink at night and on the weekends. But besides that, I don't know anything of Dana Smithers or anything related to the case otherwise.
Got you. I was just curious if you know, I think that Bryan Kohberger's parents were subpoenaed in that case. And I was just kind of curious if you had heard that, if there was any rumblings or rumors from that area about why they were subpoenaed.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah, I did see that as well, that they were subpoenaed, and I guess nothing came out of it for now because I've never seen anything follow up from it. So I'm not in the Stroudsburg area anymore. I'm actually in Virginia
Gotcha.
now. Yeah, so I'm in cybersecurity now. That I got the job offer for Suffolk County PD, but I didn't end up taking it because I'm in a cybersecurity career now.
Nice. You know, being in cybersecurity, I have a question for you. You know, Steve Goncalves stated that Bryan Kohberger's phone may have touched the Wi-Fi or the router. Does that make sense to you? Is that possible? I thought routers were one way, not both ways.
Well, so the thing about routers and phones is that they're always, you know, putting out information so they could, you know, join hands. So this is something I've actually talked about with another coworker who I speak about with the case, because he's also interested in true crime. And yeah, if his device did touch that router and look for a connection, it's possible that the router could have stored it on there. And if it did, you know, it could have his MAC address of his phone, which is unique to that phone. So that would be something very big if prosecution is able to get something off that. And it is probable that occurred.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I was concerned, you know, not concerned, but I was thinking about, like, hey, according to, you know, Steve Goncalves, you know, his phone was close enough to connect to the router. Would his phone still try to attempt to connect if he was in airplane mode?
Well, so the feature I know right now on my iPhone is if I put it on airplane mode, the Wi-Fi will actually still stay on. I will still have to manually disable it. So it's possible that even if he did put it on airplane mode, that it still would be looking for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connection. So it's possible still, even with Wi-Fi or airplane mode on. Yep.
And you know, the last question I'll ask you is, when it comes to the accuracy of his locations, I know that FBI CAST has this alternative means rather than triangulation to determine precise location. Are you familiar with that technology and how precise it is?
Unfortunately, no, I can't speak to that at all. I have no information on that.
No problem. I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. And if you don't mind, I mean, emailing me if we can get together, maybe do something else or bring you on if we have other further questions. I'd love to have you back on.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and yeah, I'm gonna continue following the show. I've been following this case through you guys, since it came out. So I've been enjoying it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Matt, for joining.
Of course, yeah, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Sonia. How's it going?
Hey.
Stacy, you're on, but we're gonna talk to Sonia first, and then we'll get you in. How you doing? Long time no talk.
I know. It's been so long. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just going through the new documents and try to make sense of this case.
I know, right? I know. Thanks, Matt, for being here. Thanks, mods. Hi, mods. I'm seeing your friends, your mods talking to me. I'm like, hi, guys. But quite interesting. I haven't talked to you since he waived the speedy trial. So
yeah,
that's a little crazy. But
that
proves my point. Well, my thoughts, my opinion, that I do think more so that he's like the one. That basically proves that for me. That was like a given. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the alibi was another push for me when his alibi was that he was actually out and about in his car and
Yep.
driving around. What that told me was that he saw enough evidence out there that puts him in the car, whether
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
the phone data or the cameras. Something puts him in his car, and it's probably not footage from Moscow. I think if it's anything, it's probably footage from Pullman, around Stadium Way that probably got him, in my opinion.
Correct. And when he got home and everything as well, the time. Yeah,
Y-
there's so many.
Are there any concerns that you have about the case, though? I know you think he did it, but is there anything that worries you about it?
Well, I just really hope that people don't like. A lot of people are blaming Ellie, and I see the reason people blame Ellie because of the mess ups there's been. I just hope that it doesn't, put him off because, Ann Taylor might find some hiccup somewhere. That's my main concern. Honestly, I don't want him to get off if he actually did it, and then like if he didn't do it, like who did it and why, and if he did it not alone, if he did it with somebody else, like how come we haven't heard of who by now?
Right.
Like you would think we would know other names by now. In my
Yeah.
opinion, like I mean, it just doesn't make sense for it to just be all on him if there's somebody else. So I used to believe that there was other people, but I don't anymore so much at all because of this. It's like, okay. And plus he waived his right. So
Yeah. I think it's going to be at least, it'll be at least a year before we see the trial, if not two, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And guys, I'm not laughing. I know a lot of people didn't like it last time I was here because I was laughing, giggling, and that's just my nervous thing. So I apologize in advance. It's not that I'm laughing or anything. I'm just like nervous. I'm always nervous. I hate public speaking. In high school, I could not. I would skip school just so I didn't have to do it. Like it's just not. But anyways, yeah, I don't know. But hi, Stacey. You can talk too.
Yeah, Stacey, welcome to the show. How's it going? What are your thoughts on the case?
Well, you guys kind of covered a lot that I was initially feeling and such. I think we're dealing with a very highly intelligent man.
Mhm.
He knows. I truly believe it's almost ingrained in him from little on up. I don't know if you remember, there was I forget who even talked about it on social media, but his mom was a big supporter of Ted Bundy when it came
Mhm.
to the death penalty and everything. Like when his life was on the line, she actually wrote into the newspaper and was like,
I have that.
it was like defending him and how it's not right and everything. And I think Bryan became fixated on serial killers at a very, very young age because of it. And just following, what we know of his past, as far as schooling and everything, and his dire need to, know everything within law enforcement and criminal history and everything. I think it created the perfect storm. And I do agree with Daniel as far as I think the storm continued to brew once he got denied with Pullman, and then, everything happening within the school and them wanting to let him go. But one thing I did want to kind of talk about was, do you remember when Mr. G mentioned about the UPS shipment or the letter? It was a letter that was sent to the house for Kaylee, and they called, I believe it was the FBI, to come and look at it. And then there were all these different subpoenas for like Amazon and UPS and everything. I wonder, like, I think yes, I agree with Daniel, that we have the perfect storm brewing, that he wants revenge. But I think he became, I truly do. I didn't believe it at first, but I think he became fixated on Kaylee, whether that was at that pool party, if, they were both there. But I believe he became fixated, and I struggle with, I don't think it was meant to go down the way that it did, but I truly think that if obviously this is my speculation on everything, I think he went in to Maddie first to have free range with Kaylee, and he was not expecting her to walk in. And I think it all went south from there, and that's when all the mistakes started happening on his end.
Right. I think that's possible. I think more than likely, though, I think that they were both in that room. That was something that I told the guys probably about a week before Steve said it. We were talking about the case itself, and I was like, hey, you have these girls that have grown up basically like sisters. They're out drinking. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the same bed. They were texting the boyfriend till 3:00 in the morning. I think they may have fallen asleep in the same bed. And as far as the pool party thing, I know that Bryan Kohberger went to a pool party, but I don't know if Kaylee is at a pool party or been confirmed to have been at a pool party. I know that there was a psychic who had came forward and said that the pool party was going to be important. And then there was somebody saying, a week or two later, that Bryan Kohberger was at a pool party. I think that this is just my personal opinion. There's some pictures of Kaylee in a bathing suit on her social media, and I think that maybe perhaps the psychic put, just kind of put that out there. There was some comments on that social media post with her in her bathing suit from Jack Decor, her boyfriend, and at the time, amongst the public, Jack Decor was suspect number one, right? Not to the PD, but in the public. I wouldn't be surprised if she saw those two things and put those two things and said, hey, there's like a pool party or water. I see her in a bathing suit, and something about that having to deal with the crime. And if it being Jack Decor, then you can go, oh, look, he made these comments on this picture here, and that's why it connected. That's my way of thinking how that occurred. But because there's some folks that are sensitive to details like that, and that can pull things up and out of information. Like, for instance, there was that crime that occurred in Florida where there was I think it was like 3 teenagers found shot. They were all part of the same group, and they were apparently doing some bad things, and they were ended up being shot by their own guys that they were out there with that night. And in one of them, I said that I put it out there. I was like, hey, the girl's in the car in the trunk, because there was one of them that was missing. I was like, she's in the trunk. And the reason why I had put that out there and said that and ended up being true wasn't because I'm clairvoyant or anything, but because the paperwork stated that it was only after a warrant was a body found in the car. Well, if there was a body found in the front seat or the back seat, you wouldn't need a warrant to enter that vehicle. You can get that, and then there's your probable cause. Now, if it's in the trunk, you might need to get a probable cause, a warrant to open that trunk. And so it was just those minor details that kind of bring to life, like, what's going on there. And I see that in this case as well. When the way the police talk, it seems like, at least in some part, that police believe that the motive was, to get away with this crime at some point of the motive, whether that's the entire motive or the reasoning behind it from the beginning. I'm not sure. But I think that was an aspect to this crime. And given his college education and his training and the classes that he's taken, I think he felt confident that he could have completed that. And he almost did. If it wasn't for that knife sheath, in my opinion, I think he would be free today. So, but it's interesting to think, though, like, did Kohberger come into that, was Kohberger in that room, and both girls were in there? Did one come in after him?
Yeah, I have a theory on that, Daniel, if I can.
Yeah.
Holly said it. Well, Holly and I guess we think the same, because that's what I thought too. I thought that, yeah, they were probably both eating their carbonara. um, and then, but I think that Kaylee, she did go put Murphy in her room, right? Because Murphy was in there alone. So I'm thinking whoever, Bryan, whoever, probably went into Maddie's room. Kaylee was with her, and then she went into her own room to lock Murphy in there to save him, because of what was going on. Because G did mention that Kaylee got the worst of it, which to me leads me to believe that he was infatuated with Maddie. Like I can maybe both, but more so Maddie, because he liked all her posts from August 16th with Meet the Roommates. Every post from there, allegedly, he liked them all, from what I heard from, like, a news source or whatever.
Right. From Bryan Kohberger about Bryan
Bryan,
Kohberger liking.
yeah,
So
that he liked all
I
of
heard,
Maddie's posts.
yeah, I heard that straight from Kaylee Goncalves as well. But
Yes,
the thing
exactly, yeah.
is, I think if that was the possibility, if that was true, I think that would have came up quite a bit, and police and law enforcement would have seen that, and then they would have said, "Who's this Bryan Kohberger liking all her pictures?" And come to find out, hey, that's a guy that WSU police said that he drove a white Elantra. And hey,
not just that though, because remember, he allegedly messaged one of them continuously, like, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And he got no response. So that as well could have been Maddie. So they might have gotten all of that, and that's how they knew to go search for this guy.
No, the only way they knew about Bryan Kohberger, and I'll pull it up. I believe it's from the July 14th. Let me pull it up real quick. It's the July 14th state's response, and I think it's on page 7. It's a 19-page document. It's on page 7. I think it's the last line on that page. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Let me see.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Absolutely.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And on here it talks about. Let me see. It's let me see. Let me pull it up. It's I want to say it was July 14th. Page 7, last line. Okay, July 14th. Motion to temp seal, reply in support of motion of protective order. 19 pages.
Who's that? Sorry, there's a lot of noise. I don't know who that is. That's not you, Daniel?
I'm sorry. I just I'm not familiar with the format, so I'm doing a little squeaky in the background, and I just didn't know for sure. I was gonna do a testing 1 2 3 testing, but I guess I'm muting. I'll be back. And just anytime anybody, I'll be back. I'm here.
All right, sounds good. All right, sounds good. All right, so right here, I'm correct. Page 7, last 2 sentences. Moreover, as the DOJ policy on the IGG explains, the FBI can only use the IGG after the investigating agency has pursued reasonable investigative leads to solve the case and the perpetrator's identity remains unknown. So if there was any indication that they thought that Bryan Kohberger was a suspect, they wouldn't have done the IGG at all. And if if they thought that he was a suspect, kind of similar to the defense's paperwork, they said that they had secretly taken a cigarette butt off of somebody to check for their DNA. I would have assumed that that's probably what they would have tried to do with Bryan Kohberger, which is what they did try to do on December 27th, and they only came up with his father's DNA. So, that leads me to believe that the New York Times article that stated that Bryan Kohberger's name came to them based out of the IGG on December 19th. And I think that's when he became suspect number 1. If you go in, there's also the Howard Bloom article that talks about December 20th, and it talks about Chief Fry having a pregnant smile, and it's referencing the Elantra that was crashed in Eugene, Oregon. My thing is that Bryan Kohberger was already in the Poconos, and if they were watching him, they would have known he wasn't the car in Eugene. So that told me that they weren't watching him. So he wasn't a suspect at that point. I know they got his name
later on. Yeah. Okay.
He became a suspect as soon as this came forward. Now, what the FBI did was say, all right, this is your suspect in our opinion. We can't prove that because we don't have his DNA to test it to the knife sheath directly. So you, the state, and law enforcement have to go build your case and get a warrant off of other means, because you can't use this IgG. So you're going to have to go get a warrant that's correct and legal so that you can test Bryan Kohberger's DNA to the knife sheath. And that's exactly what they did. And since they never tested the FBI, Bryan Kohberger's actual DNA, they never checked this, did the swab or anything and attempted to test it to the S&P profile or the, what they had from the sheath. The FBI, it's hearsay. So that's why the state isn't, it's like a lie detector test where it's helpful to point in a direction, but you can't use it. And so you can't use it for warrants, for search warrants, for an arrest warrant. None of those things. It cannot be used at all.
Okay.
For when you have typical television show like Forensic Files, right? You can go in as the FBI and obtain any evidence that's been discarded at the coroner, and it's legal. That's always been part of their way of collecting evidence. And I don't believe that it would hold up in court. I don't know the exact federal case statute file that it would fall under. And that would be something that a legal expert would have to do in order to verify what I'm saying. But, they do it, and I don't know how they do it, but based on what you're saying, and I mean, we haven't really gotten into it very deeply. I'm listening to what you're saying, and this is just scratching the surface of evidentiary rules and what is and isn't allowable in the court of law. Just saying that, that this is or is not allowable into evidence is going to be, I think every single piece of evidence is going to be falling under the same scrutiny in court as we go. So it's going to be a knock down, drag out fight every single step of the way with this case. And it's going to last forever. Everybody who says we're not going to, we might die before we see the end of this might have some truth in that statement.
I do think it's going to be a while before it comes down. But yeah, you're right. There's so much that is going on at this point. They're fighting everything from cameras to pictures of Bryan Kohberger's fly to.
I posted that. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
I posted it on my TikTok. That's what I'm known for on TikTok, I think, is just bashing him. I think because I like to poke, I don't know, I noticed these little things. The fly thing, I noticed it, so I posted about it. How he was looking at Anne, things like that, just like reading his energy, and that's what I've been doing on TikTok a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I think whenever they put that document about the cameras and everything with the pictures, and I'm like, I felt attacked because that's what I've been doing too. But of course, I'm getting that from the media, right, as well.
Yeah,
I'm not there, but I mean, if I see it, I'm gonna grab it.
Right. I mean, getting a photoshopped picture that somebody else took and manipulated, and saying that the media shouldn't be allowed in there or the camera shouldn't be allowed in there because people from the outside world are going to manipulate photos is ludicrous in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think it's there. But when it comes to this case is definitely going to take a while in my opinion. They're fighting for everything, and rightfully so. I mean, I do think that I do believe in the judicial system and everything else. I think that he should have a fair trial and have the, all the information and stuff like that. Like when it comes to the IgG stuff, I'm not even opposed to the state giving it to him. I don't think it's going to cause any, it's not exculpatory, because at the end of the day, his DNA from a buccal swab matched to the DNA on the sheath, despite all that other stuff. Now, there is like somewhat precedent or whatever on information. I mean, it happens almost in every case that there's going to be information that you have gathered that is not going to be usable in court. Like, for instance, if there's a guy that is selling dope, and my buddy comes over and tells me that his sister, who doesn't want to talk, told him that guy's selling dope. So that's hearsay. I can't use that in court, right? But that doesn't prevent me from going over and doing a stakeout at the house, make sure and see if there's any cars coming at late hours of the night, see if they're there for only 3 or 4 minutes, gone, coming on multiple occasions on short periods of time. And then you go and you knock one down, and you've come to find out you find a little bit of dope in the car. You bring them into the station, you get them to talk. Then they tell you, yeah, where they got it, because like 90% of people, especially if it's their first time getting caught with something and they're threatened with their liberty be taken away, they usually talk. It happens. And so I then get enough for a search warrant to go and search this house. And I go in there, search the house, and come to find out I got baggies of dope, which are consistent with this person being a distributor. And so now I can, I have a case, a very strong case against him, but I never used the initial evidence at all, of this guy. This guy telling me that his sister. You can't use that in court.
That's right.
And so I think that this is kind of the same situation here. You can't use, that in court because they never actually tested Kohberger's DNA to the sheath. So it's very much like hearsay. And so it's up to law enforcement to create a case against him not using that information. Now, I will say that, in my opinion, the weakest part of this case is the search warrant for his phone locations. I don't think it's strong enough. Just basically what it said was that because he was a criminology student, he would have known to turn his phone off. And so I don't think that's enough, in my opinion.
I think he tried to play one, but I don't think it worked. Like, I think he didn't think, maybe his anxiety or his adrenaline maybe made him mess up, where he did in fact turn it off, not thinking, hey, oh shoot, they can use this part maybe going forward. But the pings, no, I don't believe that's going to help him it's not enough. But turning off his phone is a stupid move, in my opinion. If he did it, well,
Well, my theory is, so, and I was saying this earlier, my theory is that he didn't want to touch things as much as possible, as little as possible, I mean, so that way he doesn't leave DNA behind, right?
Right.
And hold on, where was I going with that? So he goes up to the 3rd floor, and the reason why I think he spares Dylan's life, I had a guy that's actually been in that house on the show before, and one of my questions was to him was, if he thought that Dylan's bedroom was a closet, and he said that it took him and his friends a while. They didn't know it was a bedroom for a long time, because Dylan's door is located right as you enter the kitchen from the hallway. It's in the hallway going right next to the staircase.
Right.
If Kohberger assumed that it was a closet, and I know people are going to say, oh, well, if he stalked these people, how did he know that it wasn't a closet? One, he was only in the area 12 different times. And if that's 2.5 times since August, that's not really a lot to see. And two, at the time of the incident, you can go on Zillow and all these other places and see pictures of the inside, but it didn't give you like that 3D tour that we have now.
Yeah,
that wasn't available then.
Tour. Yeah, the virtual tour.
So,
I use that a lot. But yeah, I agree, because there's a closet right beside the stairs too. There's a stairs, there's a closet, then the kitchen. And then there's like Dylan's room, which I could see that being mistaken as a closet as well. And then just step up going into the living room.
Right. One could be a closet, one's a pantry. But if he assumed that it was a closet or a pantry, and he only touched the rear glass door once because he doesn't want to touch things that he doesn't have to more than he should, do you think he would really check a door he thought was a closet? I don't think he would. I don't think he would have touched it.
No,
that
he
would have
wouldn't
been
touch it. Yeah, right. Like you said, yeah, for sure. That makes so much sense, Daniel. Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes upstairs, commits the crime, goes back downstairs, passes in front of it, goes into the Xana's room. That crime, that attack is committed. I think that Dylan did yell out, be quiet. And I think that Kohberger heard something. I don't think he knew what was said. When you're not paying attention to somebody and somebody says something, what's the first response? Like, huh? What? You know what I'm saying? And so I think that he may have heard something, didn't know where it came from. He hadn't even gone to the first floor yet. So they could have came from the first floor. I think he knew that time was out, time to go. And as he's leaving, he sees the closet door open and realizes it's not a closet and there's somebody there, but is unsure if they called 911 or not. And probably thinking to himself that he doesn't have time to continue. And so he leaves. And I think the anxiety is killing him, not knowing what's going on. And so I think he turns on his phone and hopes to see maybe a police scanner app or something, see if there's commotion going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or news. And I think that's why he turns it on where he does. It was just killing him to not know. And I think that him going back the next morning is a big red flag, and one that is typically committed by ignorant criminals. Now, he never went back again after that. He was able to control himself, but by then news media was going crazy. So it would not have been unusual for somebody in the area to search the crime.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's a lot to unpack. I think when I hear what you're having to say about this case and Bryan's behavior, there's a difference between it being an organized versus an unorganized offender. And you're assuming that it's an organized offender where he would take all these precautions, do all these things, where myself personally, I believe that he was in a manic state and was not as organized as he could have been had he, like, who wants the killer to get away with it? So he made mistakes. And that has to be, I think that when you look at a criminal, you can plan it as well as you'd like to, but there's always going to be a few mistakes that the person's going to make.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with that. He is human. And I think that when you're looking at the mistakes that are going to be made, they're most likely going to be made during the commission of the crime. Because during the preparation of the crime, there's not as much stress. The post-crime, cleaning up and stuff like that, I can assume there's more stress in the pre-stuff, but it's probably not as stressful as committing the crime itself. And I think that's why we see a lot of his mistakes happening around that time. Turning his phone on, leaving the knife sheath, parking, driving this weird loop around. Yeah. So I think that, that's where that comes into play. But we only got like 5 minutes left in the show, y'all. So I do want to hear if y'all have any final questions for me.
No, I don't. I just came on to say hello.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And what about you, Stacy? Any final questions?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So tonight it was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We honestly had nothing planned, and then all of a sudden the documents dropped, and we're like, all right, let's go to work. Well, I want to thank you guys and thank everybody that did either participate in the show, whether you were in the live chat, whether you came on the panel. We'll probably do this on Wednesdays. We'll do open panel discussion from here on forward. I want to thank Mikey earlier for his super chat. I'm gonna go through them real quick. He's talking about Big Blue barking at the moon right now without any clothes. I'll say that's probably true. Jeff H came in saying that the Jack D's comment on Kaylee in a bathing suit was, anyone got a rag? Yeah, I remember that one. That is exactly what his comment was.
Yeah. And anybody got a rag I can wash with? Yeah. I screenshotted that. I posted about it too. Unbelievable. But
it is, but he was a child at the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was his ex, so he was kind of allowed to do that. Like, who knows what kind of humor they had together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Brittany Dunn also comes in with a $5 super chat saying, a little off topic, but I've seen a document that says that the judge told Bethany, when you come for trial, you won't be arrested. Thoughts? haven't seen that document.
Me neither.
Like,
But I'd
if
love to
it's
see it.
true,
It's out there.
I mean, if it's true, the only thing that I can think of is maybe perhaps maybe she purged herself during the beginning of the investigation, said she was asleep, and then come to find out she wasn't asleep and just didn't want to get involved. You
I
know,
forget the term. Yeah, I forget the term. There's a term though that I had posted on TikTok, and I don't remember when they don't call authorities in a certain amount of time. Like they waited so long to call. What is that term? I don't remember. But anyways, I'll find it and mention it sometime.
yeah, failure to report a homicide, that's a
Yes.
crime here in Texas. But
Failure to notify. That's it. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, failure to
yeah,
notify.
yeah,
That's
I
something.
think, yeah, it is, but I think that's if like law enforcement is never notified and it's discovered by other means. They didn't flee, they didn't leave. Like, there are certain characteristics of that law, at least here in Texas. I don't know how it is in Idaho. It could be completely different there, but here in Texas, it's not that way. But I'm not seeing, if you can find that link, or if anybody else knows where it's at, I would love to see it so that I can read further into it instead of just speculating on it.
That's the only crime I can see happening for Bethany or Dylan is a failure to notify. And that's probably what they're, if there is anything in regards to that, that would probably be the only thing it could be. I mean, they're obviously not involved.
Yeah, I don't think they are.
No.
They downloaded their phones and their everything. If there was anything about planning or setting them up or any of those type of things, they would know. I should have asked this to Matt, but how is it possible for somebody without the knowledge, Matt, if you can let us know in the live chat, if how easy is it for somebody without knowledge to go in there and completely wipe out their phone from contact and stuff, especially in a short period of time? Because I'm assuming they would have had to have told somebody that night, hey, they're back home, we're asleep, they're asleep, whatever the case may be, right? And so, and also Xana wasn't asleep, so that kind of puts a mark on that one for it being that. But let's just say it was. I don't think that they would have had the opportunity during that time. I mean, maybe so, but to have completely wiped out their phone of any contact with the supposed real killer, I find that hard to believe.
Don't they have the people in tech at the law enforcement good enough to be able to go through that? Whatever, even if it was deleted, or no?
I think they would. I mean, nothing is truly deleted, right?
Right.
You can always pull it up, and like I said, they forensically went through their phones. So I think that there would be some sort of evidence of, that planning or acknowledging that there's something going on.
Right. Matt's here, he said. I'm still here, he said. So for your question.
I just saw this.
Go, though.
All right, sounds good.
Right. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank
Say goodnight to Blue and Jaime?
Jaime, yes.
Jaime. Okay. Gosh. All right. Good night.
Good night. Piccolo's grandma, Pickle Toe's grandma says, my husband was book smart but had no common sense. Couldn't fix anything. Dumb as a doorbell. I think my wife probably agreed with that about me. Let me see. There it is. Digital forensic teams could recover that data. It will never be fully deleted. Perfect. That's what I wanted to know. So to me, that if the victims were involved, there's no way that they would not have gotten caught. The surviving roommates, sorry, not the victims. If they were involved, there's no way at this point, in my opinion, given the fact that they had their phones, their digital downloads, they forensically went through them, and them be still free today. I don't see it. Don't see it at all. But that's all I got today, y'all. We'll be back tomorrow night. We're going to be talking with Jon Stewart, who is a former Illinois governor candidate and pro wrestler, and has some information about some alien footage, an alien interview that happened in 1990s. Don't want to miss it. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. We'll be on tomorrow at 7:35, and then we're going to be back on Friday as well. So we'll be on almost every night this week, leading into the weekend. So you don't want to miss the shows. You don't want to miss the content. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night. Peace.